Hey, what's good, everybody? I'd like to welcome you guys to a brand new episode of the Boombox Guru. I'm your host, LB. So, on today's episode, man, we're going to be talking about my top three Mobb Deep albums. So, for those of you who may not be familiar who Mobb Deep is, Mobb Deep was one of the greatest hip hop duos of all time. They come from Queensbridge, New York City, the same hood as Nas and Cormega and countless other hip hop greats, Cold Chillin' Records, Marley Marl, MC Shan, so many greats, Roxanne Shante. I mean, the list continues, man. It's a lot of greats that come from Queensbridge, man. And Mobb Deep was one of those. And throughout the 1990s and even up until like the 2010s or whatever, Mobb Deep put out like a great body of work, man. I think the 90s and early 2000s are probably the peak years where they put out some really classic records, man. And they just changed the game, man. They helped reinvent East Coast hip hop. They were part of that whole resurgence of New York hip hop in the mid '90s, along with Biggie, Wu Tang, Nas, and several other acts. And you know Havoc and Prodigy, some of the dopest MCs, both of them great lyricists. Havoc he was also the producer that produced a good amount of the music. He did Shook Ones Part Two, he did Quiet Storm, so many classics, man. And of course, Prodigy, a lyrical genius, man, one of the greatest lyricists of all time. And unfortunately, Prodigy passed away back in 2017 from complications of his sickle cell, which is something that he battled throughout his whole life. And Havoc has gone on to continue to keep the Mobb Deep legacy going forward. He just dropped a new album with Styles P. He's still flying that Mobb Deep flag, man. So I wanted to focus on three of my favorite Mobb Deep albums, man. And I just want to say that, hey, I like all of Mobb Deep's records, man. I don't think they really put out any terrible records. Even the record they did with G Unit, Blood Money, man. I don't think that was a garbage album. But these three particular albums are three of my favorites, man. Like anytime I'm on a Mobb Deep kick, these are the three records that I go for. These are the records that had the most replay value for me and the ones that I just enjoy listening to the most, man. So without further ado, we're gonna get into this video, and this is me discussing my top three Mobb Deep albums. So stay tuned and keep it locked in. All right, so first album we're gonna talk about is Mobb Deep's second album, known as The Infamous, released in 1995, man, on Loud Records, bro. So this is Mobb Deep's second album. Although for a long time, I thought that this was their first record, man. I didn't hear about Juvenile Hell until like a few years later. And I gotta tell you, man, classic hip hop record. This is a masterpiece, man. There ain't nothing I can say about this album that hasn't already been said so many countless times. You can definitely hear the growth between Juvenile Hell and The Infamous. And Juvenile Hell, that's a bit of a fitting title for that debut record because it's a decent debut, but you could tell that hey, them guys were young when they did that record, man. I think they was like 16, 17 years old, and you can tell that they hadn't really developed fully as artists. But in between that record and them doing the infamous, man, they found their sound and they found who they were as a group, man, and it's really displayed on this record, man. Havoc took over the reins of the production. Q-Tip produces a few songs on here. I forget who else got production credits on here, but majority of the album is produced by Havoc, and he provided like those dark soundscapes, man. Those gritty, like hard hitting boom bap beats, man. He just created a very dark kind of dark presence around this record, man. It's a gritty record, man. You know what I'm saying? It definitely invokes like that New York mid '90s vibe. Anytime I listen to this record, I'm entrenched in the imagery of like mid '90s New York City around this time, and I can vividly visualize everything that these guys are talking about, man. Because there's so many vivid storytelling tracks on this record, man, and top notch lyricism on here, man, and just so many great tracks on this record, man. I mean, there's not one weak song on this record, man. From start to finish, everything on here is hitting. It's hard hitting, man. It's all killer, no filler. I mean, they got a few of those skits on here, man, but the music on here, from one song to the next, man, it's just killing it, man. And there's a reason why this record still, even today, is on the top of the list of like the greatest hip hop albums of all time, man. Cause it is a timeless classic, man. There's nothing dated about this record, man. It still continues to be relevant to this day. And it's like a time capsule of like mid-90s hip hop, man, especially in New York City, man. So the Infamous, man, right here, man. This is an album that every hip hop head should have in their collection, man. Like if you don't have the Infamous in your collection and you call yourself a hip hop head, I don't know. I might be a little bit skeptical. But the Infamous Mobb Deep, man, one of the greatest hip hop albums of all time right here. All right, so next on the list is Mobb Deep's Hell on Earth, released in 1996, man. The follow-up to the Infamous. And I gotta tell you, man, I made a post about this on Instagram, and I talked about how, Mobb Deep put out two classics back to back, the Infamous and then Hell on Earth. So sometimes you're in that dilemma, like, dang, which one's the better record, man? And I've come to the conclusion, man, that the Infamous and Hell on Earth, man, they're like neck and neck when you want to talk about the quality, because both of these records are quality. For the most part, Hell on Earth, it does follow the same formula as the Infamous, but the difference is that Hell on Earth is way more darker. It's way more grittier, man. Like Prodigy did an interview not long before he passed away, on Rap Radar, and they asked him, why was Hell on Earth so much darker than the Infamous? And Prodigy said because at the time that they was recording this record, man, they was going through a lot of drama, man. They had lost a lot of family and friends, and that whole like Death Row Bad Boy, that East-West thing was happening, so they was caught up in the midst of that. So all those emotions that they were going through, man, they just put it all into the music, and this is what came out. And they came out with another masterpiece, man. Back-to-back masterpieces right here, man. I mean, Havoc, he kind of takes more of an orchestral approach to the sound, man. Like you kind of hear like I guess like violins and stuff adding into the mix of everything like that, man. But the beats are hitting even more harder, even more grittier. I mean, you can hear a little bit more of the aggression and the lyricism as well. But they definitely churned out another masterpiece with Hell on Earth, man. And most Mobb Deep fans consider this to be their best work, and I certainly ain't gonna argue with that. I'm not gonna argue if people consider this to be their best work, man, because it's a great record, man. From again, just like the Infamous, man, from start to finish, every track on here is killer, man. Nothing weak on this record at all, man. Another slight difference is that the Infamous, man, the Infamous had a slight jazzy rap vibe to it. You don't really get that on Hell on Earth, man. Like this is like straight up hardcore hip hop right here, man. But so many dope tracks on here. I mean, of course, the song "Drop a Gem on Them" is on here, which that was Mobb Deep's response to Tupac. Tupac taking that shot and them on Hit 'Em Up. And I know there's some controversy surrounding that, but Drop a Gem on Them was actually released as a single prior to Tupac's passing. Like New York City radio stations were playing that song like months before Tupac passed. Now, I mean, they decided to put it on the album because, I mean, it is a classic Mobb Deep song, whether you like it or not, man. But I just want to clarify that, man. But so many great tracks on here, man. Extortion featuring Method Man. More Trife Life, the sequel to Trife Life on the first album. Can't Get Enough of It. G.O.D. Part 3, which was the big single from here. Hell on Earth, the title track, the front lines. So many great tracks on here, man. So definitely Hell on Earth, man. Another masterpiece in Mobb Deep's canon, man. I mean, the Infamous and Hell on Earth, man. Those are two records, man, that are just hard to like really try to compare because they're just both great. They're just perfect hip hop records right here. But yeah, man, Hell on Earth by Mobb Deep, released in 1996, man. All right, so last on my top three Mobb Deep albums, uh, I went with Murda Muzik, released in 1999. And this was a huge record for them right here. This was a huge record for them. This album right here was actually my introduction to Mobb Deep. Like I really back in the day, cause I was like 4 or 5 years old when like the Infamous came out, and I was like 6 when Hell on Earth. I really don't remember those records that much, but I remember when Mobb Deep dropped Quiet Storm, the remix with Lil' Kim. And that was a huge hit, man. I remember seeing that video constantly on BET back in the day, man. And then the song called It's Mine with Nas was another huge one from this record, man. But another great record, man. You could kind of see that like the Infamous, Hell on Earth, and Murda Muzik is kind of like a trilogy, man. I would say that this was kind of maybe the last Mobb Deep album where they really had that dark, gritty sound. I mean, at least to the nature that we knew of them at the time, man. But Quiet Storm was huge, man. There's two versions. There's the original version, which just has the verses from Prodigy, and then there's the remix where Havoc is on there, and as well as Lil' Kim. And I didn't know that, but Quiet Storm was actually supposed to have been a solo. That was a solo track. That was Prodigy's song. That was supposed to have been on his solo album because he was working on HNIC around the same time that they was working on Murda Muzik, but Quiet Storm was getting played in the clubs, and it was such a big hit that, you know, the label wanted Prodigy, you know, to like use that for the Mobb Deep album. And, you know, Havoc ended up coming and convincing him, like, come on, son, let's use that song. So that's what happened, man. But this is a great record, man. Like I remember some of the big homies that I used to be around back in the time, man. They used to listen to this album a lot. You know, I remember the first time hearing what's that song? Let a Hoe Be a Hoe. I remember the first time hearing that, and The Realest with Kool G Rap, which is probably my favorite track on this album, man. And you know, Where You From with 8 Ball and MJG. I mean, there's a lot of great music on this record, man. Just a tremendous album. And also, this was the first album where Mobb Deep started working with The Alchemist. And The Alchemist, man, he's one of my favorite producers, man. But this is where he started. This was the first album where he started working with Mobb Deep, and you know, the success of this record is what really took his career off. You know, now The Alchemist is considered one of the greatest hip hop producers in history, man. And look at everything that he's done recently, man. Like, but this was the beginning right here for him, as far as like him starting to see success, because he produced I know he produced Thug Music, which features Infamous, Mobb, and Chinky, but he also produced, you know, The Realest with Kool G Rap. And he tells a story about how he played the beats for like Prodigy and Havoc separately, because they weren't in the studio at the same time when he was meeting them, when he first met them, and they both picked the same song. So it was just really ill, man. So this was the beginning of The Alchemist's success as a producer, man, and his long relationship with working with Mobb Deep, man. But so many great songs on this record, man. It's just a fantastic album. I don't know if I will hold it in the same regard as the Infamous and Hell on Earth. Like if I was like ranking these albums, I don't know, man, because the Infamous and Hell on Earth, man, them records are just so killer, man. But I'm telling you, Murda Muzik is a fantastic record, man. You know, I guess I hold a special place for it because this was my first, you know, introduction into Mobb Deep, and you know, being at a certain age to witness like the tremendous impact that Quiet Storm, you know, had on the hip hop scene, and just seeing that video all the time on BET, man, as a kid back then, man, it just had a real impact on me. But Murda Muzik, man, definitely one of my favorite Mobb Deep albums, one that I play a lot, man. And you know, 99 was a good year for hip hop, man. I know people kind of brush over the late 90s and early 2000s, man, but I can remember like with this coming out and so many other classics, man. But so that was a good year for hip hop, great year for Mobb Deep, man. They took it to the next level with Murda Muzik, man. So definitely another banger from Mobb, man. Like three in a row right there, in my opinion. All right, so that's it for this video. Me discussing my top three Mobb Deep albums, man. Hope you all enjoyed this video. If you did enjoy this video, please do me a favor, hit that thumbs up and give me a like. It helps with the algorithm. Also, be sure to subscribe to the channel, hit that bell. That way you'll be notified anytime I drop new content. Also, I want to take the time to thank all my new and old subscribers, everybody that's been taking the time to watch the videos. As always, hope everybody has a blessed day, a blessed week, and love, peace, and music. Peace out.